Tony, I'll do everything, but you can do the revenue on, water and sewer.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the public hearing of the fiscal year 2025 budget. I ask that you please turn your cell phones off during the meeting. Please be quiet during discussions. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. (24-0427) called order.
Belkin.
Here.
Bergmeyer.
Here.
Dagenhart.
Here.
Mayor Digman.
Here.
Fleur. Meyer. Roby. Here. Attorney Hess.
New business 24-0428, presentation and discussion of city budget in the city of East Dubuque.
Thank you, Mayor. So we'll present this budget. We'll start off first with the fire department because Chief Heim is on the line here. And so he'll be talking about his budget, particularly the expenditure portion. And then we'll move on from there. Chief?
All right, do you guys want me to go line by line? You want me to hit the highlights?
I think if you hit the highlights, that'll be good.
Okay, so, budget, we got, the officers, each on a line item there, myself, two captains, assistant chief, our safety officer, and then our training captain and three lieutenants. Right now, we currently have two. We'll probably be promoting the third one this year since we have them test and get that. And then we have the, underneath the regular employees, that is the, stipend, and that's the, fire half for that, and then the EMS will be in the next one. They'll have their other half in there, for that. And then, well, we did add, because back, a couple of years back, when they passed the resolution to do the stipend, we did put a 1% increase in there for everybody. So that's, again, obviously up to you guys, if you're gonna approve the 1% on all those line items there. If any questions, I'll go on to hit the other bigger items.
Go ahead.
Uniform allowance basically stayed the same. That's, go for our dress uniforms, and then we do, buy the new people, a new t-shirt every year. Personal protective equipment, that's basically 3 to 4 sets of turnout gear, 3 to 4 helmets, hoods and gloves, boots, for, life cycle replacement. So that indicates the multiplier of what that's gone up. Maintenance service building, we put in about 5,000. Since we're doing that, we want to work, do some painting and clean up the garage doors and things like that. Maintenance services supplies, that's just our equipment. That is just our annual test. So all of our air packs have to be flow tested every year, or ladder tests have to be done every year. Hose tests that we have done. And then on the vehicles, that's just the yearly oil change and other unscheduled maintenance. This does include the radio install on the new engine, which is about $300, I believe, $300 to $400 off the top of my head. And then there should be little bit down because we're only gonna have 2 pump tests that we'll have to do this year because with the new fire truck coming, that one will not need to be pump tested until next year. So, getting into medical services, that is our yearly pulmonary function and physicals that we have to do per OSHA. So we'll be starting them here in May. We're looking at, I added, underneath other professional services, $2,000 for turnout gear inspection. That's a third-party inspection, and we'd send it out to them. We clean our gear after every call, but they would professionally clean the gear and inspect it and fix any issues that come up with it. And that would hopefully make our gear go longer in service, lifetime service in the 10 years that it has to be in there. Dues and membership, that's our dues to the Illinois Firefighters, Illinois Fire Chiefs International Association of Fire Chiefs, and NFPA. The travel expense for the conference and that, I have that in there every year. We usually, unfortunately, we don't have to spend it, but that's based on the fire marshal's budget of whether or not they have funding to pay for hotel rooms. If they have funding to pay for hotel rooms, we don't have to pay for the travel for the conference. Training wise, I have 13,000 in there. This budget go around. We do our annual incident command recertification and running people through the course itself. We have a couple people signed up for summer college this year. That's $200. We have training and site improvements, and then we're also looking at bringing in a guest speaker, Mike Gagliano. He's from Seattle. We're working on, I do have a $2,000 grant for that. And I'm working on getting a couple other sponsors for him and his wife to come in. He's gonna do a full day program for $7,000 roughly. So, but that'll be some of the money we may have to front, and then, like I said, we'll have $2,000 from the Illinois Firefighters Association. I'm working on getting a couple other ones there, and then this will be opened up, so we'll have a fee to anybody that attends it from outside of our department, and that will help offset that cost. So it'll be a cost, but there'll be an offset there. So we have boat slip rental from Midtown. That number is actually, I have that bill, it's due in May, and that is actually only $500, so that'll actually come down. And maintenance supplies vehicle, that's the lettering for the new engine. The equipment acquisition, it'd just be hose. We do need a new washer for our turnout gear and buying the deck gun for our new engine. The portable radios on that will end up coming off because we did receive the grant from the fire marshal's office to purchase those. So that'll be a little bit less of a cost out of the budget per se. It'll come in as income. And then underneath the software programs, I am responding as our response program that tells us who's available to show up for calls. Fire HUD is our physiological monitoring program. We do have a command program in there, and then emergency networking is going to be replacing our emergency reporting for our NIFRS reports and all our training reports, because emergency reporting is going away, and they're changing our NIFRS reports and changing the platform for that. So they weren't going to update, emergency reporting wasn't updating their platform because they were bought out by another company. And then in the economic development fire prevention program, we have $1,000. So pending any questions that you guys have on the fire budget.
So I direct everybody's attention though to the bottom line on this budget and the other budgets. Done a very nice job of controlling costs. It's great to have department heads control costs instead of having to impose that. So thank you.
Okay.
You can move to ambulance, I think.
Okay. I just gotta pull it up here. So ambulance, again, billing coordinator, that's the one that she does all of our, dealings with the billing company and all of our reports to make sure that they're correct when they go to the billing company. So that's, requesting, 4,300 for that this year. Medical officer, that is, they're like the lieutenant part on the fire side. So, and that's again in that 1% increase. And then volunteer EMTs, that is the EMS portion for the per call stipend in there. So, again, uniform allowance, that's again our uniform that we outfit everybody in, and t-shirts. Underneath personal protective equipment, that's our dual purpose gear, so that's protective equipment for car accidents and medical calls for our EMS personnel. Then you have maintenance services, that's the cardiac monitor updates that they have to do on a yearly basis, and cot maintenance and things like that. We have our other professional services, that is our report writing for ESO, that's our reporting system for EMS, and then the billing, and then we have the Wi-Fi that we pay for our computer, and the ability to transmit EKGs to the hospital. We have dues and memberships, that's our area memberships that we belong to, organizations. Training wise, we have $7,000 in there, that's to send people to EMT class if we got any interest. And then the ACLS and PALS is research certifications for our paramedics that they have to have every so many years, and that they're due this year. $12,000 for operating supplies, that's our O2 that we get, and all the medical supplies that we go through on ambulance calls. And then the other big ticket item on that is the equipment acquisition. That's the ambulance loan that we have for $10,000. And I believe after this year, I think it's down to 2 years. I'm not positive on that. That we have left on those two. That's a 0% loan from the fire marshal's office. And then again, community relations is $1,000 that we use for EMS week and things like that. So, pending any questions there.
I don't see any questions. Thank you, Chief.
All right.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe. Nice
Thank you.
job.
All right. You guys have a good night.
Thanks.
You too.
Okay, then, I think moving through the budget, if you go back a couple pages, I guess three pages. I will, so page 5 for those of you with numbered pages. I'll run through the administration budget, then we'll go into the other other parts of the general fund budget. I guess first off, I'll kind of, to give an overview of the budget, This is the general fund budget we're going through right now. And the general fund budget is basically the taxpayer-funded portion of the budget. It funds the administration of the city, the public works being streets, storm sewers, lawn mowing, maintenance of all the city facilities, and police and fire. That is as separate from the enterprise portion of the budget, which we'll get to a little later. Enterprise portion is the portions of the budget that run as businesses. So water, sewer, garbage, those are programs that, while they're owned by the city, they are expected to raise as much money as they need to operate. So they aren't generally eligible or open for funding from the city, from the taxpayer. They are user-funded programs. So whatever the cost is has to be borne by the user. So we'll get to that after we get done going through the general fund budget. So on administration, that would be my budget. This reflects, and I'll try to go through it rather fast, and if there are questions, we can take them. But comparing last year to this year, we had significant, so the salaries are basically actual, although the second line, the regular employees, counts the treasurer, whose position is open right now, and reflects some funding for merit pay and increases. In the past, the non-union city employees just received the same regular increases that were in the union contract. Going forward, those will be merit pay positions, and so and/or contract positions for the department heads. And so the merit pay will give us a better way to keep control of both cost and ensure that we are rewarding the very best service and the best in our staff. And so there is funding in there for that. That, of course, would have to come and be approved to be expended. If you go to the overtime line, the anticipation is that while the overtime this past year had everything to do with the financial situation of our books and closing the monthly books, so we had $5,400 almost of overtime among the three city employees who do the financials. That was all to bring the books up to date. We now are within days of having everything caught up to where we are. We also now have the new software that helps us to keep on top of those things better and oversight of our financial situation. So that's why the overtime budget goes down significantly. Moving down the other, so engineering services drops significantly also because we're taking on less new projects. In the past few years, there's been a growth in the engineering portion because we've begun and completed a lot of large projects. So that reflects less of that, although there will be some in regard to the restoration of the police and fire building. We'll have to begin planning for that and beginning that with a roof and things. So the another major change is the codification services. Those are funds that go to every time we change anything in our code, we have to pay to have that added to the code online for people to access. And we need major code revisions, so we have put significant dollars in to back up the code revisions that we're going to be having. Our training line goes up in anticipation of both a new treasurer and significantly the training of the rest of the employees, including the department heads, on the new software we have. So if you want to ask our department heads about the new software they just got trained on, I'll tell you that you all approved that, and that is something that is already yielding benefits. The invoices that come in now go practically automatically once they get inputted into the system. But the actual invoice is sent electronically to the department head who's responsible for that. And if it has to come to me, it comes to me. And so that all moves more smoothly and is much more controlled. And so we've got it's been a phenomenal thing, and I think the department heads have already begun to find things, savings, and things by being able to look at their budgets online and track in real time the budgets. So in the near future, that will come to the council, and you'll be able to benefit from that also. But training is needed for those things. That would constitute the major items. We have a reduction in staffing. We had a part-time staff person who is no longer with us. We have the movement of DACRA out of this budget and out of the police budget. And so we've got savings due to those things. So overall, we were able to bring the administrative budget down from $616 in the current year to $591,000. And then in the next year, we anticipate being able to bring that another almost $40,000, almost $40,000 reduction. I would like to say that that's the biggest reduction, but unfortunately, some of my department heads are trying to outdo me. So with that, I will hand it over to Luke. Chief, I think I've been complimenting all the council members. Luke, the police chief has taken on the new responsibility of tracking a budget and doing a budget, and I think he's done an outstanding job of it. So, you want to talk about the highlights of yours?
Sure. So we'll just, I'll go through fast, just like Bob did. If you have any questions, please stop me and ask. Obviously, you can see there, we're a reduction of one officer. The school resource officer is still being paid by 1/3 from the city, another third from the school, and another third from the donations pot yet. I am eliminating the dispatcher position throughout this budget for reasons that we do not have cells in the pod, and the main reason why we had dispatchers last year before we moved over to the pod was because we had cells at the police department that we could make an arrest, drop them off, and our dispatchers would, lack of a better term, sit with them, babysit them, make sure they're okay, while we also still did patrol in the high crime rate areas and times throughout the city. Once we were done with the bar closing times at 3:30, we go back and process the people that we arrested during the night. Since we don't have the cells anymore, we were just giving a lot of MTAs. So I thought it would be irresponsible of me to still have the taxpayers pay around $7,200, $8,000 a year per position for someone to answer the phone for 10 hours a weekend. So we just eliminated the dispatcher's spot. Overtime always seems to be a big topic, so we'll touch on that for just a couple minutes. Last year's budget was $35,000. We doubled that due to not being full staffed. Again, I'm going to back up. So we're not full staffed now. We're running short. Last year, in this budget, we were only full staffed about 8 months. With Maggie coming on late and Caleb leaving early, we only had about 8 months of being full staffed. With some creative scheduling, I believe I'm going to be able to make that threshold. I'm hoping my goal is to beat that, just to give somebody, just give you guys an idea of what overtime would cost. Myself, all the way to Maggie, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 of us, we have a total of 104 shifts to cover. vacation and personal days. Then we have 20 shifts to cover for holiday pay or for holidays. And just last year, between sick and comp time that was taken, there was 38 shifts that needed to be filled. So I averaged out the lowest paid employee for overtime to the highest paid employee for overtime, which is not me because I don't get overtime. We would roughly spend $77,000 in overtime if I just let the shift go and ordered somebody to work overtime. So I'm told I cut that in not quite by half, but I still have to have a realistic expectation that I'm not gonna be able to have a creative schedule 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. There's going to be overtime. I figured out roughly just the holiday pay. That means they get extra pay to work the holiday, so I'm not having to fill a shift. That's approximately $10,100. So if you took $10,100 off of the $45,000, you're looking at about $35,000 in shift coverage that I would have to come up with. Now,
So what he's saying is that the holiday pay
The holiday
is a
pay
contract required,
adds 10,000 to my, would
But
add
it's-
10,000 to the budget.
but it's a contract required, so we're trying to split that line out
No,
for the rest of the budget. We haven't been able to do that yet.
and when I say shift coverage, this isn't because I took vacation, Mickey took vacation, this also includes court, holdover. Unfortunately, Maggie, we put her into the investigations role, I sent her to some investigation schools, she's doing a fantastic job. To this date, April 24th, she's handled 8 sexual assaults, and she's handled 2 burglaries, and she's working on a 3rd. So tomorrow, she's coming in early to go get DNA swabs for the search warrant. Ultimately, that's on her non-scheduled day to work, so that goes into overtime. That's something that we have to pay her for, contract. So when I say shift coverage, it just isn't because someone was sick, took a vacation, comp time, personal day. It's also filling in for the multiple other areas that need to get attentions throughout the city. So that's why I'm hoping, I talked to Bob a bunch, I wish I had a crystal ball of how many investigations we were going to do, or how many investigations we're going to have, and I could better plan and budget for the overtime. So that's about where we're at with the overtime. Going back a few years, it hovers around the $50,000 mark. Again, I'm hoping to get it under that $45,000 mark. That's my goal. I don't wanna go over, so that's one of the things with this new software program, that I'm able to watch it, so every time I log in, it tells me how much I spent this month, how much I spent last month, and I can kind of gauge. I've asked the guys to try to go to their training, which also brings me another fact, that their training, there's the class they wanna go to, I asked them if they can try to get it to, on a day that they have to work, so I don't have to get and pay them overtime. And everyone's been sort of amenable to that while we were in this desert, per se. We also have the Safety T Act that's been imposed to us. We have to have mandatory trainings, so many credit hours. Sent Cody to a bunch of trainings last year, so he now is our firearm instructor, rifle instructor. I sent Jake to taser instructor school. With all of the Safety T Act mandatory trainings, we have to have 36 hours and 3 years for high-risk stops, high-risk stops, use of force, and cultural complacency. So we have to have 36 hours of that in each individual area, and if we don't acquire those, said officer could be decertified. And the Standards and Training Board is the one that pulls the pin. It wouldn't be us, it wouldn't be you guys, it wouldn't be Bob, it wouldn't be me. If they just do an audit on our training and they see that 3 officers have not met that 36-hour requirement for continuing education credits, they can pull and decertify them until they get into compliance. So that means if I did it, then I can no longer work until I'm caught up, so that's an open shift that's gonna need to be covered.
Not to mention liability to the city if there's a problem when you are not certified.
So that's also where, instead of sending these guys to all this training, now I have an in-house instructor that's be able to train them. So tomorrow is a good example. Tomorrow at 3 o'clock, we're gonna go some PowerPoint work with everybody, and it's only gonna cost the city 2 people of overtime for 4 hours. So the rest of the guys are either working or it's their day to work. So instead of sending these guys on their day off and give them 12 hours of overtime, I'm hoping that this in-house trainer can fulfill that gap of not overspending on overtime when they're going to class in Rockford, Dixon, because of course, we can't have classes in Galena. So all the MTU classes are over in Rockford, Dixon, Freeport, so that's 3 hour round trip that we're paying somebody to go to class. So hopefully that in-house instructor can go. A lot of the stuff, the legal services, last year's budget was $28,000. We spent $3,000 this year, and I do believe that is for FOIA requests that come in, that we have to have Sue Hess look at because there's some sensitive matters in the reports, the body cam footage, the squad car cam footage, that people are requesting. But
That's primarily a DACRA savings, I think, from the 28.
Yep, and I think that's what we talked about, we have a lot of attorney fees, when we get it started, we can keep going with it, so now that it's not here, it went down drastically, on the budget. Other professional services, I believe, was the DACA program itself. Now that since it's not here, other, professional services went down to, $5,000 instead of $33,000 which is budgeted, and then we went over $2,000 at $35,000. So there was a $30,000 saving, $31,000 savings there, just getting, that, out of here. Did some, telephone, work here. I switched some stuff on, in-squad, computer system, with the internet that needs to be ran so we can run license plates, people, check if things are stolen, things of that nature. Went with FirstNet instead of Verizon. FirstNet is, built for first responders, and it saves us about $400 or $500 a year. So we went with that. We also went and this year went to all of the phones that we may have not been using that we were being billed for, and cut out a couple of 2-3 phones just in the police department itself, and canceled those lines, which saves us money in the long run. Travel expenses. We spent, we budgeted 4,500. We spent 1,000. I don't know why it was spent at 4,500. But I just knocked it down to 500, so we're saving another $4,000 there. Okay, operating supplies. We went over a little bit on operating supplies. I'm gonna keep it around 5,000 and try to get through that. Any questions on that, please? K9 is pretty self-explanatory. We're gonna be over at that $3,000 budget for 5,000. Jake is now in the process of seeking out more grants and more donations. It's very nice that some of the people in this community, citizens and businesses, have reached out. They do reach out periodically and ask if they could donate some more money to the K9 program, and the answer is always absolutely yes. Please, thank you very much. Appreciate your donation. He is in the process of applying for a donation at the chemical plant, and they usually give a pretty nice, decent, hefty check for that. But with the current situation at the chemical plant, I don't know how much they're going to give, if they even give, so we can't count on that. Let's see, fuel. We've been working on this. I've been working on it with Tony. Turns out for about the last 18 months, the fuel has been split just between Tony and I, and that's it. So there was another department that wasn't being billed, and there was actually 2 other departments that weren't being billed. So now we are keeping track of that. As of May 1st, I'm gonna start keeping track of gallons. I have a public safety tank down there, and I was under the assumption that I was the only one using that, and when I looked between last budget before, and this budget, and our fuel costs went up $11,000 to $12,000, that kind of concerned me. So when another department is only using 13 gallons for the month, we're gonna start keeping track of the gallons very, accurate time. So we'll see, and we'll do it for 6 months, and if it's accurate, then maybe we just make sure that the other two, departments keep their.
But I think it's something that was turned in, and the treasurer didn't attribute it to the fire department or the ambulance.
Split it 4 ways.
So, right.
Well, that's why you see the jump, and when we looked at it, and this is something I need to get with, Bob here in the near future. One time Mulgrews filled up, it'll be 282 a gallon, next time they fill it up, a week or two later, it's 302 a gallon. So there's no consistent baseline for the fuel, and obviously, and we all know that gas prices go up and down. But we'll discuss that with Bob at a different time. We have equipment acquisition at $40,000. Last year's, budget was like $4,000. This includes, this is a big number, and I will, before you get sticker shock, we are being, for the lack of better, forced to get new radios, which involves Starcom. Right now, the Joliet County Sheriff's Office is the one that operates our radio system, and it's very cost effective to have them do that. But with the changing times and the poor reception and service that we have with our current radio systems, they are going to be switching over sometime this late fall to new portables and new in-car radios, which all runs off of cellular if they can't get a radio wave. So each portable is around $8,000 or $9,000, and each squad radio is about $5,000. So that brought our total to $105,000 that we don't have a budget for, and that we were basically said here, either take it or leave it, or you're not going to have radio service. So after a few chiefs meetings with expressing displeasure with the sheriff's office doing this, we started looking at grants, money, donations, and thank God Congressman LaHood came through, and he's going to give us $1.2 or $1.3 million for our radio system and grant. So that $105,000 is going to be covered at 85%. So we're going to owe somewhere around $16,000 instead of the 105 on the grant. That's going to be one of our big expenditures. The other big expenditure that we need to start thinking about replacing the 2024 squad car. That's got 113,000 miles on it. That's our problem child squad. That goes to the shop more than any other squad. All the other squads that we have, besides that one, are all under warranty. Mickey squad is out of bumper to bumper, but is under powertrain warranty for another 30,000 miles. So then we replace the 2024 with another vehicle on the next year. So that's what we're putting money into it this year. I also do have vehicle replacement fund monies that come through every month from writing fines, citations, DUIs, things like that, go into a specific account that we can use that for, that we can't use it for anything else other than what it's meant to go for and be spent. The other big thing that you're gonna see here is we are, comes with the Safety P Act. By this year, end of this year, all law enforcement agencies are required by law to have body cameras and working body cameras. The ones that we have now are almost 5 years old. They do not make the body cam that we have now. They've stopped servicing them, and the parts are becoming far and few between to fix them or try to get them, working order. And with that comes sharing body cameras, which also comes twice the use, twice the problems. So Cody reached out to 2 different companies, which would be Motorola Solutions, and then Axon, which is Taser. They both have body cams and they both have in-car cameras. Both quotes were close for 6 body cams and 4 cameras for the squads. Was roughly around $90,000. The Taser came in around like $82,000, $79,000. for it all. So we sat and had a meeting with Bob, and it was decided that we would, try to just do the body cameras now, since the squad cameras, knock on wood, seem to be doing okay. We don't really have a lot of problems with them at this point. And they tend to want body cam footage more than squad car footage, but they always ask if we have it. So what was decided for now is that we put it in the budget. If you guys approve this budget or my budget, then, we would go ahead and order that. We would owe $22,000 over 5 years through Axon, so $4,500 this year, $4,500 next year, and then at 2.5-year mark, Axon sends us all new body cameras with all new, updated firmware for free. And then 5 years, we will then, hopefully, if we like them, we will re-up with Axon, get another, 6 body cameras, and then 2 years down the road, we would get new ones and so forth. Now comes the good part. There's a camera grant out, that usually comes out between now and July 1st that we can put in for. They extend this grant out because there is a mandate that we have to have them, and for smaller agencies, they're trying to get us all in compliance. The problem that we have to do is that we have to buy them, and then we have to submit a bill in order to receive the grant. Now, the grant could be, they could give us 10%, they could give us 90%. It just all depends on when and how many people are going in on this camera grant. If they do $2 million camera grant, and we're the only ones that put in for it, then we get all of our cameras paid for. With that, then I was talking to Mickey today, and Mickey suggested that, this is very good on his part, so I'll give credit where credit's due. When we buy this new squad car, not this year, but next year, we will outfit that with an updated squad camera, and then we'll apply for the camera grant again. And if it gets us 70%, then we're really only owing, $3,200, $2,800. If we get 50%, then it's like $4,500. Each squad car camera is about $9,000. When we bought the ones that we wear now, we got it covered at 80%, and we spent $12,000 on body cams 5 years ago. So that's where, so you can take out, from there, you could literally take out like 17,000 plus another 5,000. You're looking at $23,000 in equipment acquisition, and then I put in an easy number of $10,000 or $15,000 for a squad car replacement. Right now, the Ford, the 2020 Ford, when I talked to them about getting a car this year, which one was ordered, unbeknownst to me, I got a call and they said, your squad car is here. I'm like, excuse me, what? And like, yeah, it just hit the floor, when you come pick it up? I'm like, I didn't order a squad. I'm like, yeah, you did. I'm like, so luckily there was another agency that I could pawn that squad off on, so we weren't locked in it contractually, which again, I had no idea we were getting one. But right now, when I was talking to them to try to get one, they're only gonna give us $5,000 for the 2020. So with the 5,000, it won't be that much next year. With the vehicle replacement fund and the money that we have set budgeted, we should be able to have that covered. So it won't be like we're gonna buy a brand new squad with, all the taxpayers, funding it. Because I do have, like, every ticket we write, there's money that comes back, they go to the vehicle replacement fund. So it's not all the burden on the taxpayers. So I'm really hoping that we're only gonna have roughly right around, $21,000 in the acquisition fund for the radios that we are being forced to buy, and then the cameras that we are being forced to buy, or to keep updated. Going down, sorry that took so long. Any questions on that? That was a biggie. Okay. The software programs, was pretty big. That was for DACRA. Now I only budgeted $1,000, so I saved us $32,000. Now hopefully what we can get away with is if I need to buy an Excel program, because it crashes on one computer, I spend a couple $100 and get an Excel program on a computer, Adobe Reader, a Word document, or something along those lines that expense, that's just $1,500, and that's for, hopefully, we don't need to dip into that, hopefully we do. We have it there, that way we're not selling ourselves short, and we have a little bit of extra, money to wiggle with if we get in trouble somewhere else, something catastrophic happens. Again, going back to the overtime 5 years ago, the memory just popped up on my phone, Jenny Miller, that case, took months and hours upon hours of, investigation. So that was more overtime budget out of the water. Again, I don't have a crystal ball, I don't know if that's gonna happen again, or if it's ever gonna happen again, hopefully not. But again, we are now establishing a, CERT team. There's a tactical side 13 that we belong to, and there's also an investigation side 13 that we belong to. So those dues come up, they're gonna be raised next year from 1,500 to 3,500. And what that ensures us is if there is a catastrophic event that happens in town, we get detectives from the sheriff's office, detectives from Galena, detectives from Elizabeth, Stockton, Warren, and they all come to help out, and vice versa. If there's a big case, we go help them. So it's kind of
Mutual aid.
mutual aid. So and that would save us a huge amount on overtime. So to spend the $3,500, that saves us. That's money well worth spent right there. I'm sure Bob did the numbers and how much we're saving. My revenue side, I budgeted around $150,000 is what I'm hoping to take in this year. The way that our court system is going at state level, the guys are tending to write more tickets through DACRA because they're getting more compliance and we're getting more fine money. So hopefully that trend keeps going and we can pull in $150,000. Of course, every year we get donations. That's not figured into that $150,000. So, when I came in with my budget with Bob and knowing that I was gonna get a grant for the radios and get a grant for the StarCom, the body cams, I was sub 700,000. I was in the $600,000 range, upper 600,000 plus minus 150. You're looking at around 525, 550. Was my budget.
I will say that if you look at the past couple of years, this past year, we really put the screws on everyone to hold down any unnecessary spending. And we managed to reduce the police budget by nearly $100,000. And that was by saying no to a lot of things, including two squad cars. But this budget, so you would expect that would pop back up naturally if it wasn't controlled. But actually, this budget comes in, $53,000 less than the budget for the current year. And I will say that the 710, I actually added money back into Luke's budget because I felt that it was shaved a little too tight. And so as everybody thinks that my job is to take whatever somebody gives and cut it down, but we need a real budget, and it needs to be an honest budget. Luke brought in a very honest budget, and because he brought that in, I was able to move some money into a couple different places there where we could be a little more certain that that it's a budget that we can hit. So I'm proud of the work that the chief did on this budget.
I have a question. Luke.
Yeah.
You're talking about body cameras, car cameras, and everything else. We have how many squad cars?
4.
Is there a need for 4 squad cars?
Yeah. Right now, Jake's on his own.
Right, he's got
Yep.
a K9.
And then the other 2 get rotated, and since it was 2 were bought immediately, which isn't ideal. One squad doesn't get drove very because they were bought months apart. But yes, when squad 3 goes down, which is, the Ford, then both squads go back into rotation. So that way the squads don't run 24/7, 7 days a week. And when you realize that that's what was happening, prior, to getting the third car, we should have been rotating cars out more. One of the last cars that went out under, right before me, becoming the chief, had 160,000 miles on it. And that car was going over and getting repaired all the time. That's 160,000 miles on a squad car. They get drove. They get maintained very well, but they also get drove. They also run a lot, idle a lot, and that's, I just found out, and for everybody's information, but for every hour that your car idles, that adds basically 33 miles to it. So if you can go in, if you have a newer car, you look how many engine hours there is, or how many idle hours, and you times that by 33, that's how many active miles there are on a car. So with spacing those out, we can space out squad cars further, and you get more use out of them further. If we got rid of one squad, the other squads would then take on those responsible miles. So we're spreading it out, we're able to keep the cars in running condition, we're able to keep the cars under warranty, and we're able to keep them in satisfactory working order for the saving lines in the general public transportation to get the calls that we need.
Questions?
Nope, I'm good with that.
Not?
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks. Lou.
So,
It wasn't that bad, was it, Luke?
No, and honestly, this is my first actual budget. I was asking to learn, and what I was told was we're adding 15% to your budget. Here it is. And in the past, I'd always ask for financials, and
I went to Luke one day and I said, yeah, Luke, your overtime budget, is over. And he's, oh? And then I said, yeah, it had been cut from 45,000 to 35,000 last year, despite the fact that it was like 55,000 the year before. And I said, why was that? Didn't know why that it had happened. So he was supposed to manage to a overtime budget that he was basically unaware of and had no role in setting. Every manager that works on a team with me is going to be responsible for their budget and is going to have a role in the budget and is going to take pride in the work they do with their budget. Whether they're happy with it all the time is a different thing, but they're going to take pride in what they're doing with their budget. And that is really meaningful. I think, as Luke mentioned, he came in a few weeks ago with, a savings of $450 or so on by switching phone plans, and that's the kind of thing, and then the fuel thing. Those are the kinds of things that I wouldn't be able to see from my vantage point, but a department head can see from their vantage point. So the good work that we've been doing the last year is largely about empowering department heads to be able to do their job better. And so I'm proud of the work these guys are doing. And that goes for Joe also. So with that, now that we've gone through the people we're really proud of, Tony, you want to go look at the Public Works budget first? And we're saving the best for last. We'll start talking after that about the enterprise budget. And then I'll do that one a little more.
Is
Okay.
Really?
So if you want, I can
Didn't
go.
educate him
If
very
you want,
well,
I'll go
did
through
ya?
it. You can just,
Yeah, if you want to
Back
go
me
through,
up.
that'd be great. This is all new to me, so.
so, Tony has really stepped up, this past year, with the extended, recovery, of the Public Works Director. And, again, I've had to call on him for things that I don't think he's had to think about before. And, so I will, run through the Public Works budget, quickly here. The supervisor line, that's just a placeholder at this point, because we haven't officially filled, that role, so more to come. The regular employee line, this anticipates, Tony moving from the employee, the number 2 person in the Public Works area, to the number 1. We hope that ends up happening. We're working on that. But that's where those times change. When we get into Public Works and water and sewer, this past year has been an unusual year, we hope, for water mains. And so some of the overtime and things like that you'll see tonight anticipates that what we had this past year was an outlier year, and that we're kind of return to the mean, meaning we're going to go back to kind of more of a normal year for water main breaks. We thought, I was very comfortable that was the case, and we didn't have a water main break from November to March. And then when we had 3 of them in the last couple of weeks, I'm a little less certain. But that's kind of what this is. This budget is built on. Some assumptions there. Go to and I'll pretty much just hit the highlights here. The biggest impact on this budget, if you look at the bottom line, this budget goes up, where the trend was going down. But the reason it's going up is that, for reasons we'll talk about in a little while, the enterprise budget is in little financial distress at the moment, and the Vector truck is it's a giant vacuum that is useful in clearing sewer mains when they get clogged, and in opening up, taking the gravel out of the street to expose water mains without damaging the main by digging with a shovel. And I think it also has a use in storm sewers, and also some in streets. So while it covers all those areas, the payments, the loan payments on it, were funded out of the sewer budget. Because of the situation in the sewer budget, I'm proposing moving the payment for the Vector truck into the Public Works side, because thanks to the good work of these guys, we're in a better financial situation in the general fund, and that's a $73,400 annual payment. So if you took that off of the $529,000 bottom line, you would have another significant decrease in this area. So that would mean that administration, police, fire, and Public Works would all have significant decreases in their budgets, but for that one thing. So as far as other things, we had a light year for snow, but we had a heavy year for water mains. And I will tell you that Pam and Tony, when we get to the enterprise especially, but someone in here, went through invoice by invoice through their areas and to find what things were one time and what things were ongoing. And so that affects this budget somewhat, but more so the enterprise budgets we're going to get to. So anything to add to that, Tony, or?
No, you did a great job.
Thanks. I've done it before. So any questions on Public Works? Seeing none. After Public Works, you go to the, I've given each of you individually my opinions of the next bunch of budget items and how they lay out. They are individual lines on the property tax, and so they break out lines that in any other budget would be lines within the agency budgets, but in this case, they are laid out because of their their funding source is separate property tax. So you have the audit fund, the insurance fund, which covers liability, workers' comp, and unemployment. That line actually came in under budget in the current year, and in the coming year. Oh, I got a math problem in here, but anyway, in the coming year, I'll take care of that. In the coming year, we anticipate unemployment, comp, and workers' comp going down because total employment in the city will have dropped from 18 employees to 14 employees. Which is pretty significant as a percentage of employment. You can't go a lot below that kind of a drop. And so that should be the case there. Other than that, go down to parks and playground. The parks funds go to the Gramercy Park board for use up there. They are a very frugal group of folks and have built up a nice amount of money to be able to handle the park up there. The playgrounds have been assessed for each year at around, it's up to about the $20,000 a year mark on the property tax. And to my knowledge, in the last 4 or 5 years, I don't think anything's been spent on the playgrounds. So Tony and I have been meeting on that, and we will have a budget and our plan in place to be able to re-chip the playgrounds, re-border the playground equipment, repair anything that needs to be repaired on the playground equipment. And so that's the budget that's in there. Money will be moving between those lines based on the assessment of the needs of the playgrounds. So for everybody that's been concerned about the look of our playgrounds, they are important to the city and they will be addressed this year. The MFT line is the motor fuel tax. That line is money that has to be approved by the DOT in order to be spent. And so we send in a request, they approve it, and then we are limited to those functions and that amount of money. So in this case, so for a number of years, it's covered street lighting and salt. So when it says snow removal supplies, that's salt. My hope this year, the money has built up, and so in this year's request, I have a note on the side. I would want to request $100,000 from this fund be added to the street repair funding. And so that would bring our money available for street repairs to about $350,000. When our committees form after the budget passes, that'll be one of the things, setting priorities for streets will be one of the things brought up there. If you go, there's not much to say about TIF except that well, we'll get to it in the final page. I guess at this point, flip to the last page of the budget. Page, for those of you with numbered pages. So the new program that we have gives you green, red, and I believe yellow for whether you should be concerned about where your budget is, red being you're over your budget, green being you're okay on your budget, and yellow being if you're kind of in that area in between that we're all concerned about. So if we look at this budget, this is the overall numbers for the budget. The general fund lines on the top show that if we went back further years, you'd find deficits. Those deficits built the $1 million deficit in the TIF funds and also cleaned out a number of other funds. This year, through a lot of work by a lot of folks, this budget is almost $500,000, $495,000 in the black for the general fund budget. And so that amount of that, about 185 almost, is the sale of the two properties down here. But that amount is nearly half of the city deficit. So we are taking down almost half of the city deficit. The 25 budget proposal is $274,000 in the black. I will point out that $274,000 does not count any tax revenue from the second dispensary that was just approved. That's expected to be in operation by September. But I did not budget for any revenue from taxes for that, both because we don't know what to expect exactly, and we are still putting the money toward eliminating the deficit. But you can see between the balance this year and the balance next year that we're anticipating the next year, we should have 3/4 almost of the TIF deficit eliminated within the space of less than a year and a half, basically. And that's when you went through and you saw $50,000 less than last year's budget, $40,000 less than last year's budget, $60,000 less than last year's budget. That's how you got a number like this. And this number would be $73,000 higher if the Vector truck had remained in enterprise. So I think that's a really solid number, and I think we can anticipate that in the next budget year, we should be able to eliminate the deficit, and the following budget, be able to eliminate the deficit and begin to put money toward elimination of debt, buy down of debt. So that's the general fund news. Any questions on that? Okay. So now we're going to move to the enterprise fund. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the chief, who's laughing. The enterprise fund, you'll see that for the last number of years, so in 22, that fund was $65,000 in the red. In 23, that fund was $270,000 in the red. In 24, that fund was over $500,000 in the red. And so that is obviously an unsustainable level of deficit. No level of deficit is sustainable for very long. And so that is the thing that we have to address in this budget. So I wanted to give you the overview of it. And then we'll go into the reasons that that's the case, and then what we're doing to address that. So if we go to the to page 12, for those of you with numbered pages, You have the water budget. One of the things that we've been doing with the new financial work that's been done by Pam and Cindy, the CPA, contract CPA, has been to take the things that are one-time expenditures, especially the infrastructure spending, water tower, the wastewater treatment facility, things like that, and put those into a capital line for their construction, and then put them into a principal payment and expense payment for their debt payments, because otherwise it kind of makes it hard to actually track the budget. If you look, the budget in '22 was $478,000, then you go to 2.7 million, then to 1.7 million, and 870,000, and you'd think those are, something must be running differently because of that, but actually it's because of the impact of the water tower being constructed, which is offset by revenue from loans to build the water tower. And that's the case over 23 and 24. Then in 25, or I'm sorry, 22 and 23 and 24, then we get to this 25 proposed budget. We move into the next phase, which is we've got to pay for what we built. And so if you look at the principal and interest payment line for the water tower, we were paying $91,000, almost $92,000 for the principal and $25,000 for the interest for the year on a 30-year loan for the water tower. That cost comes online with no new revenue to cover it. And so that's kind of where we get into the challenges. The Oxford project is the next line. That is under building acquisition improvement, so that's a capital budget. And Oxford is a water and sewer project that also is a paving of the road and storm sewer. So it shows up at all those places. It shows up here at $393,000, but that is offset by a loan which covers the cost. So while it's there this year, this coming year, it is a wash for cost. But then once it's completed, then it too will add to our debt payments in each year. Anybody got any questions on that? The other things in this line, we had to address things that were 1 year issues, and we don't anticipate coming back. And this is where Tony and Pam went through every invoice for the year and determined which things were ongoing expenses, which things were one-time expenses, which things we think are greater in this year than we would expect to have in the next year. And we have adjusted the budget lines for that. So that's the reason for individual changes in those lines. If anybody wants to talk about them, it's an easier thing to show you than to talk about. But does that make sense to everybody? The work they did, I think they spent a day and a half solid going through those things. And there were certain other managers that walked by and laughed every once in a while. So that's the overview of the water budget, the sewer budget. But I guess one other thing on the water budget is that if you go to the employee line, that goes from 2 employees to 1 employee. So it goes down almost $50,000 on the salary line and $25,000 on the health insurance line. Although there's an increase built into it, we don't know what that's going to be. And we anticipate a reduction in overtime there also. So moving to the sewer budget, similar situation. Page 14 is the main working part of that. Here we've got some of the same issues, but the budget was a little more steady this year than the other significant things. The principal and interest for the wastewater treatment facility, $160,000 of principal payment plus $29,000 of interest. So $190,000 almost dollars of payment. That's a 30-year loan that started a couple of years ago. Then you have Oxford again, because of the sewer component of Oxford. Again, that's offset by revenue from the loan. Any questions on sewer? Garbage, the garbage rate went up 3%. That is just a contract. Although we do have to administer the program, charge people, collect, and take sometimes an increasing amount of complaints. Service has not been what we would have hoped for in that program, in that contract. Any questions on those? If not, we'll move to, I believe, page 4. So on page 4, we get to the enterprise fund, and this is where we get to some kind of difficult decisions and things. The problem, so as I mentioned earlier, water, sewer, garbage are programs that are self-funded programs. They're paid by user fees. Whatever the cost of the program is, the rates have to cover that. And really, they are set up to be like a business. The rates are supposed to cover those costs, but they are also supposed to cover the cost of maintaining the infrastructure on an ongoing long-term basis. I will say that when you see the level of water main breaks that we have, that's a sign that the infrastructure has not been maintained over time, and we are paying tens of thousands of dollars a year to repair the lines that need to be replaced. So we look at this line for revenue. There's a note in your budgets. Since 2021, the city has taken on $378,952.44 per year of debt payment for the water and sewer programs. So $379,000 of spending has been added for payment of those. The number in here I have is $190,000, but it's actually a little less. The revenue is increased, and again, I had 190, but it's actually less than that. I think it's about $150,000 of revenue increase. So there's been 3% rate increase in 2021, and no rate increases since then. When the application was made for Indian Hills, the application stated that every year there was going to be a 3% increase in sewer rates to fund Indian Hills. There was a rate increase in 2021, and that's been it. So what we're dealing with today is paying for things that have already been bought and are already in place. We have no choice but to pay our debts, and we can trim back the cost of all of our other costs, but our other costs in water especially are driven by the state of decay of the water mains. So we've got that's where we're sitting on this budget, which brings me to the proposal for the fees. And my proposal is that the water receipts, the fees on water and sewer be increased 10% each, and the capital receipts line, which is a $6.05 line monthly payment that each resident pays, whether they're in the city or outside the city, that rate be doubled. So it would go from 605 to 1210 as a monthly base. And then and that would be the case in both water and sewer. In the water side, the proposal is that, so the rates for water consumption outside the city, the people who buy into the city services, is doubled for those folks. But the $6.05 capital fee is not doubled. Right now, what we're proposing is for the city taxpayers to take on the Vector truck, which they do use more than the folks outside, but the vast majority of the use of the Vector is in sewer and water. And so when we take that out of the enterprise area and put it into the general fund area, gets funded by the city taxpayers and not by the ratepayers who have water or sewer services outside the city. So with that in mind, I propose doubling the rate of that $6.05 fee for the out-of-city customers. So their fee would go from $6 to $12.10, and then that would be doubled to $24.20. That actually has those ratepayers not quite paying as much as a typical household in the city for the costs that we shift from the Vector truck shifting. And the other thing that we have is the overhead in the enterprise area. So the billing, the collections, the management, the payroll, all the oversight of the enterprise area is done from Public Works and the City Hall staff. And so those costs are supposed to be charged to the enterprise fund. We charge about $90,000 a year in those funds, which is what we've traditionally done in the past. When I analyzed what that overhead should be, it came to about $212,000. So because of the condition of the enterprise fund, we're not able to charge the full value, the full cost of that to them. So this increase that affects out-of-city residents more than in-city is more than fair that way. So that, when you looked at the page 15, those changes bring us to a plus $185,782.99 in the enterprise fund together. And so that that 185 allows us to be able to go for a time without another rate increase. I would, if I had to guess, and this is just a wild guess, I would say it won't have a rate increase for 2 years. But some of that depends on decisions that'll be made on the facilities plan coming up. And so we've got some numbers on those things that if people want to talk about, we can, but those aren't built into the budget at this point. So there's a balance at the end. There should be a greater balance, and there should be a reserve in the enterprise fund to be able to do the kind of work that needs to be done. But at this point, we're going to be satisfied with just getting the enterprise fund above water. So, are there any questions on that? If there are none, that's my presentation.
Good job, Bob.
Thank you.
Any other questions in general on any pieces of the budget? All right. 24-0429, speakers from the floor, unnoted. 24-0430, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call.
Falcon.
Aye.
Bergmeyer.
Aye.
Dagenhart.
Aye.
And Roby.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Nice job, everybody.
Very interesting.
Thank you. Can you tell how many were watching?